Hello, everyone. John Doyle from OptixEQ, and today I'm going to do a live broadcast here of the early pick 5 races at Belmont. Go through them using optics and see what we can find. Pick 5 is always a pretty good bet at Belmont, 15% takeout, which is relatively good, and usually it's value. It just seems like you do get pretty much good value for the pick 5. It's difficult to hit these things, but hopefully we'll give you some information to make it a little bit easier, and we'll dissect it. When you're actually looking at a pick 5, one of the things I do is try to assess the favorites in all the legs to see if it's viable, and that's what I did, and just kind of took a look at my first glance at all the races. And I would say in race 1, there seems to be a fairly legitimate favorite, but no cinch. People may differ, but in races 2, 3, and 4, I'm kind of against the favorites. In race 2, there's really no clear-cut favorite. I think you're going to have to go a little bit deep there. Race 3, there's a big favorite. Race 4, there's a big favorite I'm kind of against, and I'll tell you why as we get into it. And then race 5, there's no real clear-cut favorite. The morning line, the shortest morning line is 7-2. Okay, so there you go. What are you going to do about that? So I think let's just jump into race 1. Okay, it's on the turf. There's some scratches, and I waited a little bit so that we got the scratches incorporated into the plot and everything. The 7 is going to be the favorite, Medea Sensation. And this horse plots very well. I mean, you could just see on both the standard surface distance, Q1 square, it looks like he's kind of above the line. This is a maiden claiming race. So, you have horses that, limited starts. You have the 8 and the 9 are first-time starters. Don't look like they're taking any money at this point. It's always difficult, especially at Belmont, especially if horses that have run okay and not terrible for a horse to win going along on the grass. So, I'm just going to go into try to talk a little bit about the 7 and then go into maybe some other possibilities. Even though the 7 looks like a good favorite, it's not a horse, especially in these kinds of races, you want to just hunker down on. Medea Sensation is dropping. This is positive. He's dropping from maiden special weight to maiden claimer. And you can see he's kind of got improving optics figs. First race was on the dirt. Obviously, it was off the turf, and horse didn't want any part of the dirt. Comes back, runs a really improved effort despite getting no cover going long on the turf. Comes right back, gets another wide and no cover trip. So this horse is logical, just when numbers-wise, when you compare him to the rest of the field. If you look at the optics fig range, he's above the range already. Gets the drop, logical, right? Plots well. This is a must-include horse. I wouldn't argue too much with people wanting to key on this horse, single or whatever you want to do, how you want to play it. We'll talk a little bit more about strategy later on as we get through the races. But obvious contender, currently 3-1 morning line favorite. And that's the only thing I thought he'd be even shorter than that, but we'll see by post time. The other horses I wanted to kind of consider being a notes player and being a optics player is the number 1, Karma's Warrior. This horse sprinted in his debut, and when you look at the run line, it looks terrible. 12, broke 12, kind of finished 9th. But the one thing you noticed about this horse, and he's bet a little bit, is the optics note improved keyword. And what that tells us is that we think this horse is going to move forward. And horses is from start 1 to start 2 could move up, even as many as 20 points, 18 points. That's kind of on the high end, but it's possible. So this horse with improvement, of a 16 to 15 points could make him a contender today. Let's look at the extended comment. And I love these sneaky closes. So this is a race that this horse closed into where it looks better than it does on paper based on the visual. So this is what you get when you get notes. I mean, you get something that's really unique, and you're able to kind of target horses like this where the general public won't be on them based on the run line. Okay. So the 1 was one that I kind of considered. The other horse I looked at was the number 2. Another horse would often improve. Now, this horse has already lost below today's level, but that was on dirt. Had traffic and room. What is that? Traffic and room keynotes. What do they mean? just means the horse got blocked during the running of the race at some point, had traffic, but really had no room to run. So another horse we were projecting improve, should move forward off turf debut. Okay, so that's another one to look at in your backups. The 2 Triple Brown. The other horse I thought mildly interesting, just because the only good race this horse had was on turf, 72, and it was at a higher level, maiden special off a layoff. So if you kind of toss the dirt races and look at this horse in terms of just his turf race, he had trouble in that race too. 72, you can project forward on that horse if he's, just a turf horse, and you can kind of cross out the dirt races. A little bit big if, but still, you're going to get your price. Well, currently the horse is 4-1. So for me, it looks like the 7 is logical. Like the 1, probably the best of the backups, but wouldn't argue using the 2 and 4 underneath or in backup tickets on your pick 5. Okay. Okay. Let's go to race 2. And race 2 is a little bit of a mess. You can see the plot is a red. It almost looks like a vertical versus a horizontal plot. It's a maiden claimer 20 race. The speed rating is kind of average, and the speed rate is below average, is 0, and the contention is average. Don't know where to go in this race. Just thought from a look-see standpoint, 2 and 6 look up against it. Probably focused on the 1, 3, 4, and 5 here. I don't know. The 1 is the morning line favorite, but that was before the entry. It was part of an entry. Entry was a first. I don't know if the first was taking some money or thought that, the morning line maker thought the horse would take money. There's just negatives on every one of these horses. Let me just pull it up here. The number 1 has had his chances at this level and hasn't done much. And in fact, when you filter out and just look at fast track races, which it is today, this horse's numbers are terrible. 55, 59. Okay. Does get a jockey change here, a very positive one. Maybe he's well meant today, second off a layoff. So I can't argue using him. I just don't feel great about him. Okay. The 2, just look at that form. The only thing is he's dropping to the lowest level. It gets a little bit of cutback in distance from the last. This one I just don't like. 3, Prince of Fenton. No finish in last. That was a second off a layoff, but did improve a little bit in terms of number-wise and in terms of grade. Optics notes grade with the drop. Okay, just again, not excited about this race at all, as you can tell. The 4 has had a litany of chances, but he's fast enough to win. So I would include the 5 just on the drop alone. And this is the horse I think should be the favorite, just because the numbers-wise, this horse looks superior in terms of speed figures. And if this horse is not the favorite, it should be. So consider that in your bets. His last 3 races were turf. He's run 74, 75 on dirt, which kind of towers over this field. And then the 6 was the horse I didn't like, just based on the plot. Just gets out of the gate slow. But in this race, I don't know. I might even consider all of them. But for me, I think if the 5 is not the favorite, just in vertical bets, that might be a horse you can kind of key around. I'm probably going to use 1, 3, 4, and 5 here, just because it's such a crap race, and I wouldn't be against anybody who uses the 6, even though I just don't like the way he plots in this situation. So anyway, 1, 3, 4, and 5 there is something that I was thinking about. Moving on to race 3. So this is the race that I thought the favorite might be vulnerable, Disco Pharaoh. Okay, so let me just say that Disco Pharaoh kind of towers over this field numbers-wise. Let's be honest about that. This horse is run 97, 96, right? Here's the problem with this horse. He was in a grade 3 last time, so people could say, well, it was a grade 3, he's getting a big drop. It wasn't a stellar grade 3. It was okay. It was no different than his non-graded stakes race that he ran prior. But the thing is with this horse, he just did no running. Just absolutely no running in that race. I mean, wide was being generous. I mean, I just think this horse just was flat, finished dead last in a field of 6, and just, I don't know. I mean, just, maybe the race came back okay. Winner ran in big race, big number, but still, hard for me to bet a horse off such a dull effort. Yeah, I get the drop and all, but there's other horses here that have potential. And, let's talk about one of them. The number 4, Nova Rags. This is obviously the class of the race. This horse is competitive in grade 1 last at Woody Stevens, which is usually a huge race, Belmont Day for the younger horses that are kind of more geared to sprinting than longer races. Came back, didn't do well, but it was kind of against the flow. It was a weird race in the Iowa Derby. Then they kind of put him on the bench. This horse came in, this horse in his debut on this track just ran a B+ as a 2-year-old, ran 85. Let's face it, this horse, if he's not broken, I mean, he's the horse to beat in this race. I mean, if you don't like the 3, this horse is the horse to beat. I know people sometimes don't like the bet horse off left. You got Belmont, Saez is taking a ride here. I just think if this horse is anything what he was last year, he wins this race. But you just never know how they come back. So what else is there? I want to go back to the plot for a second because I think this is really important. The early pace horses have an advantage here, right? Even though, the little bit of contention, the speed rating's low. Now, the 3 looks like he'll sit the trip. I'm just not sure. Again, my issues with him is based on that last race. So what does that leave us? Really the 1 and the 6, because the other horses are not much in this race. So the 6 looks like the speed of this. The 1 actually looks like the early speed. The 6 looks like he's got an advantage in the second call, but he kind of got the circle. Which horse do you like better? I like the 1. I'm going to show you why. Let's look at the 6. Look at all the red. So, right, so this horse is a need to kind of lead the race. So let me look at when this horse is lone speed. He's won twice. He's only won twice out of 8, 9 starts as lone speed, getting easy leads, alone speed. So I don't trust him if he's going to get pressure, and he's going to get pressure from the 1. Alternatively, like that one, stage left. Let's look at him when he's dueling or being pressed. Look at his horse. I mean, comparatively speaking, I mean, we just filter on the one. I mean, this horse is there. I mean, this horse can fight. Okay, so he's going to go. Him and the 6 are going to go for the lead. I assume if he can bust the 6 out, 4 is not ready to run. The 3 I got my issues with. He's my alternative in this race. So I think the 4 is the best horse in the race. I think the 1 potentially has a wire-to-wire chance. If he can put the 6 away early enough and no one comes running late, he looks like the horse to run down. Okay, and the difference is huge, right? I mean, he's 8-1 versus 3-1 on the 6, who will get all the juice. Okay, so that's an interesting race 4. That's how I see race 4. Let me see if I'm going to pause here for a second just to see if there's any questions out there. Yeah, we got some comments. Okay, so someone says turf at Belmont playing. Let me just put it up there. Playing to speed or closes on the track profile does inner and how to make a difference. Yeah, I guess I don't get much into that, just from a track profile because I'm kind of focused on the plot. That's the profiles I look at. But I would say that, yeah, I mean, if you know these tracks well enough, there might be advantages. I just think with all these, especially with the inner, you want to save ground is the key and get the trip. But day to day is really what I focus on, how the track's playing that day. So, you get an early indication of how it might. Yesterday, everything seemed to be fair from my perspective. Okay, thanks for the stream. Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm going to go on to race 4. And there's another favorite that I think could be vulnerable, right? Everyone's going to be betting the number 2. Dakota Gold. And I don't know, why not? I mean, this horse as a 2-year-old was running numbers way above today's fig range. So I'm a little curious that I guess it's a good spot to come back into a state-bred stakes race. Looks like an easy spot. You know, it just towers over fig-wise. It's coming off a 226-day layoff after running decently 5th in the Breeders' Cup turf, which is a grade 1. And look at those numbers, right? Yeah, I have a problem. There's a but, right? And so let's look at this horse's work line. So they shipped this horse to Florida. He got 1 work in February, and then he went to the shelf. Didn't come back till April, and he's been working pretty regularly after that. And they shipped him back east here, I guess, for races, because they were, you know, they weren't intent. I just don't know. Like this horse hasn't run in that long, and it looks like they intended to run him in Florida. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm a little concerned about the lack of activity. Secondly, let's look at the V bars here. And it's a great angle called trainer jockey. And the one thing I'll notice is this. Well, let me just filter out these so I can see trainer. I like trainer for the meet. And you can see he's kind of below the line. And that's because Gargan is not having, Gargan, that's my joke for him. Gargan's not having a strong meet. And it's really interesting to see his go-to barn kind of guy is Saez. Look, you don't miss anything with Ortiz, Irad Ortiz, but Saez is this kind of guy, and I'm just wondering why he's not here. He actually lands on a horse that I don't even understand. It looks like a dirt horse, and you know, just seeing this and this trainer, it's confusing to me. This is one of these horses where worries me. Right, I don't like the horse because he just has dirt for him. Doesn't look like he's anything to do with turf. I mean, based on his physicality, but just seeing Saez go to this horse, kind of like what? Kind of interesting to me. This race, though, I mean, if you can beat the 2 in this race, then it's wide open. Well, it's really not wide open actually. You only land on 1 or 2 horses. Let's just go quickly through the field because I just think the 1 is still a maiden. The 2 we talked about. I'm going to skip the 3 for now because I think that horse is probably the single. We talked about the 4 a little bit, just no turf form. The 5 just broke his maiden. I gave it a B-, so it wasn't. The race fell apart. You can see the extended comment. Race fell apart late. Maybe this horse takes money just because of Chad Brown, and maybe there is improvement, but still too slow for me. The 7. This horse is okay. Comes out of a common race. This I don't understand the morning line. So this horse comes out of the common race with the 3. That horse's morning line is 10-1. This horse is 6-1. Even though this horse was 8-1 in that common race and lost to that 3. The 8's okay. I don't know. He's kind of an early pace horse. Yeah, you could consider him. It just seems like maybe, I don't know if there's really a move forward with the class rise and a quick turnaround. So I'm a little bit negative on him, but using him as a backup. Okay. So my point is, if you kind of are off the favorite, then really the only horse you can play is number 3. And I think this horse has potential kind of single and a good value single. Now, 10-1, you better forget about that. You're not getting 10-1. If you are, go to the bank. Let's look at this horse's form. Started off his career at Belmont, run 2 good races, broke his maiden second race. And you can see I like the improvement. This 3rd race was a monster race. They put him in non-New York bred race, stakes race, and the horse runs a solid 3rd. Really good race. A good race, came back, was a strong race. Then, for some reason, I guess they wanted to try dirt. And he got kicked back, which is a real negative. You see that green keyword with kickback? That means that we really move horses up off races like that. It's just a major negative. And our statistics prove that. Horse comes back and doesn't run a bad race, just that he's kind of out of his style. They got him like pressing the pace, which was not what he wanted to do. Really what he wants to do. He wants to kind of sit off of it a little bit and make one run. That was off a 126-day layoff. Still ran a pretty good number, and then he improved in the second start of the layoff in a race where it was really kind of spaced out and he got traffic. And I just think there's another move forward, especially if he runs anywhere near this stakes race he ran with progression as a 2 to 3-year-old. I could see this horse running in the 90s in this race and being able to overcome the speed figure advantage that the 2 has. So for me, I'm really leaning on number 3 in my pick 5s. I just think this is the value play. And if you can make a case against the favorite, it all depends on how strongly you feel. But I thought this horse was a really good alternative. Okay. And then I'm going to go to race 5. This race is a mess. I would be going pretty deep in this race. Let me see if I can point a few things out here. But the one thing, the standard plot is different from the surface distance plot, obviously. I mean, just the look-wise. And people who know, well, I've talked about this before, when you're looking at a plot that looks this good, this one really lines up along this diagonal line. I start with the horses to the left and evaluate them that way. So for me, I think horses that look okay here are 1. I would go deep here. I would use the 9, the 1, the 5, the 4, the 2, and the 8. I go that deep. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to point out in this race. Let's go to the grid. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that kind of jumps out. I mean, just the one thing that does jump out, just look at how close these horses are on numbers. They're all kind of running in the mid-70s, low to mid-70s. There's really no, advantage. The one thing I would say is that don't know about this Rosemary Potatoes, but if this horse can get back to the 1 turf race, is he really just a turf horse or whatever? And if he can get back that 81, kind of got a very good chance at a price. That was kind of horse was a little bit interesting. Nothing. Oh, the only other horse that kind of said, "What this classic Vinman, who's just shown no form on dirt, is running against less loss seas and all the rest." And I'm just curious to see that Pratt ended up there. So I don't know if you're going deep. Maybe I mean I know it's crazy, but this horse. I mean, I don't know. It's just hard to bet for me. But so for this race, like I said, I'm kind of spreading out 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, and I got enough short, where I'm taking some shots with some key horses that I could probably spread in this last race. And if you're more comfortable going even deeper, go. I encourage it. Okay, because it is a tough race. Okay, let me go back, see if there's any questions out there. We got some questions. Okay. Okay, jockey on 3. Okay, I guess I assume you're talking about Cancel, right? Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But I don't think he has to be aggressive. I think he can sit, and I think that horse might just outfinish everybody. I don't think he wants to be that close up anyway. I think there'll be enough pace for him. Let's see what else we got. I like the 8 for the 4. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. My opinion is that I just think that horse might. Let's go to the 4. Here's the 4. Here's the plot. That's the other thing. It just wasn't crazy about it. I didn't see this 8 having any kind of pace advantage. And then what I didn't like about the 8 was the moving up in class and then the quick turnaround, 15 days here, right? But he did win off of similar 15 days before. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue the 8. I would, if you're trying to beat the 2 like I am, I wouldn't argue including the 8 and even the 7. I thought the 7 could be a little bit dangerous here. just because, you know, I think he got taken out of his race last time, you know, with the spacing. And so if he can come back and maybe improve off the maiden win, why not? I think he's got some potential, and he plots pretty well. I guess he does. I guess he's been running in routes, so he's cutting back. Look, for me, I would kind of use this just for a price perspective. It's going to be a major difference between the 7 and 8. So you know, maybe for me, if I'm beating the 2, 3, and 7 would be the 2 horses. You know, more fun. They both come out of the same race too, so I thought that might be. So consider that in your wagering. Okay. Let me see what else we got here. Okay. Let's see. Good call. Charles B. Yeah. Okay. Good call. Can't beat the 2. Race 5. Number 2. Race 5. Okay. Okay. I mean, the horse doesn't seem to have an edge. I mean, he's coming out of races fairground. Fairground's a lower circuit. I guess he's dropping off the last. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I'm using them. I just think that race you can go deeper. No disagreement though. Please give a quick notes version of how to read my name. Oh, okay. The plot. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the plot a little bit. First of all, let me clear. First of all, if you want to know anything about the plot, really, this is really good stuff. If you go to a website, let me just go there. Go to info. You go to the plot. There's quick reference, user guide, videos, all the rest. Okay, so just keep that in mind as you go through this. So the plot is why a plot is green versus red. Really has a lot to do how they line up on this diagonal line. You know, there's a couple things with the plot, right? First of all, that's it. You know, the plot fit. Second thing is looking at the run styles, right? So in a race where you got maidens and all the rest, you got to be more careful because these horses don't have established run styles. So take it with a grain of salt. The other thing the next thing you want to look for is obviously squares in quadrants, just squares, especially in quadrant 1. You know, they have an advantage. The next thing you want to look for when you look at contention, you want to look at is quadrant 1 light or is it heavy? Meaning, is there a lot of horses in quadrant 1 or not? That's what kind of contention tells you. If it's light, it's going to favor quadrant 1, even if there's circles. If it's not, it's going to favor probably other quadrants. And then you want to be looking for squares. Speed rating, when that's low, again, quadrant 1. If it's high, you want to be looking elsewhere. If the contention and the speed rating are both high, that's when we potentially get some meltdown. So when you see that speed rating above 50 and the contention of flame, and it looks like a lot of circles in quadrant 1, you want to be looking for quadrant 4, quadrant 2 squares in that instance, okay? But that's an extreme. You don't get that pace scenario all the time. If you have something with a light, like a snowflake contention, the speed rating like 10 or below, 15 or below, and quadrant 1 looks light, really, you want to focus on sometimes just a better price. And by the way, when you have those extremes, always default to the better price unless there's something really wacky about the horse's form. Always default to the bigger price, either when you have that light quadrant 1 or the heavy quadrant 1's heavy speed rating, heavy contention. The big squares in quadrant 2 or 4 always kind of default to the one with the bigger price. And with the closer ones, you always want to always make sure too you get a horse that gets more of an inside trip, where the quadrant 1 you get the outside trip, right? You want horses that can stalk the pace in the light quadrant 1, and then the deep close you want horses that can save ground, so maybe more of an inside mid to inside post. Middle's the best always though. Okay. Hope that answered that question. I mean, it's hard to go through the whole plot, but I refer you to go to the information that I sent. Okay. Okay, so hopefully that answers it. Is there some other questions? And there's just more kind of statements than questions. So let's kind of review this a little bit. Let me pull up. Let me go to kind of got some. All right, so let's just kind of in review. 7 plots well, Carly 7-2. Don't knock this horse. A 1 projects an improvement. That was the kind of horse I liked second best. And then I mentioned also the 2 and 4 in race 1. Okay, those are the horses I kind of landed on. Race 2, there were negatives on all the runners. This is the race. 6 horses. If you go deep, fine. I think I kind of landed on 1, 3, 4, and 5 as the ones. I thought that's just from a clock perspective, I thought this 2 and 6 were up against a little bit, but I was a little iffy on the 6. It's such a bad race. I don't kind of race 3. The one thing about Disco Pharaoh too that I didn't mention before is that in those big number races, the race before his bad race in the stakes at Plymouth, he was 0 for 12. His horses coming out of that stakes race that he won and Laurel are 0 for 12 since. And then his maiden special win, which also was a big number, the horses coming out of that race are 1 for 17. So just another reason why I was a little bit negative on Disco Pharaoh. It's mainly that last race. Just didn't do it for me. I thought there was a potential single in the 3, but I also mentioned the number 7 as my backup in that race. But again, in another race, I'm kind of taking a stand against a horse that's just been on the bench. Kind of, I don't know, it seemed like his campaign initially pointed him to Florida and then a change in plans. Just too much iffiness there. So, yeah, that was why there was a reason I was kind of against that horse. And then, the other thing about race 4 is just that, you have a maiden. There's a lot of horses that I think are easy eliminations. 4 and 6 have no proven turf form. 5 is first-time versus winners and so forth. And then in race 5, we talked about just spread deep. Go as deep as you can afford. But it's a decent sequence. You got some races where you can kind of maybe take some swings against the favorites. And if you do, there's definitely value in the other legs. So pay attention. Okay? So I think that's it. Let's see if there's any other questions out there. Okay. No. Again, we recorded this, so the people who missed it want to jump on it and listen to it. It'll be recording will be out there as soon as I kind of finish. But thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting OptixEQ. And go to OptixEQ.com to get this great racing information because it is very unique. And once you learn how to use it, you definitely have an edge because you're just thinking differently about races. You're thinking about the topics that are most difficult to assess, and that's pace and form, okay? And that's where we try to focus in on. Oh, by the way, I just want to bring this up. If you look at today's races, especially those people who are kind of playing Southern California, I know there's kind of closing day, there's a big mandatory whatever. You must look at the race of the day. It's the last race of the day, and Emily Gullickson tackles the race for us. She puts it in focus. Great format for, looking at a race and deciding how you want to wager on it. And I will tell you that it looks like she's identified this race as playable. She thinks there's some really good information. There's really some good information in here. And I would take a look at it because it just seems like she's onto something here. Is that, yeah. So it's race 11, and you're playing those, big races at the end of the meet there. I mean, it's a mandatory, so it's a mandatory pick 4 stuff. Take a look at, she's got her line there. I guess the morning line we didn't have available during this. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong race. Today's the 19th. Okay. Okay, my bad. There is a good race. I will put it up there. This is not it. Okay. I will fix this right after, but take a look at that. It's race 11, I think it is. Okay, so we got one more question here. I'll take one more question. Carmelo, what do we have? You take distance into account when using the plot example. Would you bump up to 7 race 1 at a shorter distance based on? Oh, would I bump them up? Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, you look at distance. You always look at distance. Let me see what you're talking about in terms of the 7. Okay, I'm not following the 7 though, because this is a horse that's kind of run today's distance. Do I have that right? Race 7, number 7 in race 1, because it looks like race 1 didn't. I'm not following. Let's see, number 7. Yeah. I mean, it's 8.5, 8.5, 8.5. So, do I have the right race there, Carmelo? I don't know. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it. I appreciate you listening. And again, take a look at that race today. I'll have it fixed in a matter of moments, and we'll have this out on recording. So good luck, everyone. Pick 5 is a good offering, relatively speaking, wise. And anyone have any strategies, but yeah, I think you can see where I'm spreading, where I'm kind of narrowing down, where I'm taking chances against favorites. Interesting sequence. Take care. Oh, one more. Thanks. Okay. Take care.